Welcome to another episode of Discover St. Cloud, Florida. I'm Kristen McCary, and I'm here with your host,
Janine Corcoran, broker for Corcoran Connect, a real estate company.
And we promised you last week after our market report that we were going to do what?
Yeah, the year-end and statistics. You love that part. All about statistics. I'm not as much a numbers person, but I enjoy hearing it.
Absolutely.
Well, listen, I like reading it. I like reading articles about it and everything, but sit me down in front of a computer and figure it out.
No, thanks. Call somebody else.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's what I'm here for. But I really do love statistics, and I really love like kind of figuring out, seeing if we can recognize some trends and things like that are going on. And so I'm really excited for this particular episode to kind of go through what's kind of gone on in 2022. You know, there were a lot. I feel like we had a full change. Everything just changed. But it's funny because you look at the numbers and it's still not like...
No, not crazy different.
Yeah. It doesn't feel... The numbers don't equal how it felt.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
But anyway, so this time we're going to kind of do pull some different statistics for you, and we'll still go through zip code by zip code, right?
Yep. So I'll start with 34769, but I'm not reading the 2N numbers.
Okay, I'll do that for you. It's okay.
I'll give the stats. So I'm starting with the month of December. The number of days to contract were 23, and the days to close were 51. So what do you consider days to close? From listing to closing?
Yep.
Okay.
And so, and that's for December of 2022.
2022, right.
Yep. Okay. And then how does that compare?
Okay. Well, the sold price per square foot was $220, and this is just single story homes, right? We got rid of all the...
We got rid of new construction.
Okay. New construction. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's $225.48 price per square foot. But the number of homes in December we had for that zip code were 22.
Sold.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So basically what we're doing this time is instead of kind of using our averages, which we've done in the past, we usually use average price per square foot, average this. We went ahead and went with median so that it would weed out the really outliers, those highs and lows. So this is pretty middle of the market in terms of what you can expect. And so if you compare that to, we went to the start of the year of January in 2022 and what we have in January.
So in January of 2022, it was taking 14 days to contract versus 23 in December and 53 days close. So that wasn't that much different at all. Average price, median price per square foot, $196.42. Number of homes sold in January of 2022, 32.
Yeah. And so that's a big, that's a bit of a difference. So if you look right now in 34769, comparing December to January, it took 1.6 times longer to sell a home to get it under contract. So it is taking a little bit longer in that zip code. But the price per square foot is still, the median price per square foot is still up 14.8% from January. Okay, so still increases from the beginning of the year, which was really cool. And then we went ahead and kind of picked the middle of the year to just compare, what's the difference in time frames.
So in June, the middle of the year, number of days to contract was 7. So that's a little bit less, and number of days to close was 39. So that was quite a bit difference. Yeah. The sold price per square foot, $246.64, and the number of homes sold, 47.
Which is crazy because that's like the highest amount. And I feel by like summer, it felt like things were already starting to the market was starting to shift a little bit. And so if you look at the numbers from June to December, it took about 3.3 times as long to sell a home. They were still only on the market for 7 days, and now it's taking 23 is your kind of median rank there. And then the price per square foot, the sold price per square foot is actually down from $246.64 to $225.48, which is a decrease of about 8.6%.
Interesting.
In 34769. So curious to see how that pans out for 2023.
Yeah, curious.
Yeah. So sure. Moving right along to 34771.
The most active zip code in St. Cloud.
And now don't forget that again, this is taking out all new construction.
Yeah, all new construction.
So when you look at the number of homes sold, look at the difference in comparing that to 34769. They're about the same.
That's true. So December of 2022, number of days to contract, 45, number of days to close, we have 63, and price per square foot, the price per square foot is $223.75. Number of homes sold, 27. That's absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
Low. because they took out all the new builds.
It's not fair. See, it was a lot of times when the builders will put in sales or new construction will put in sales, you put it in when it closes, but then your contract date is 6 months ago. So then it says the negative days to contract. So we want to take those out because you don't want to skew the numbers crazy. So we wanted to exclude those guys there.
So let me give you January of 2022 for 34771. We had 15 days. The number of days to contract was 15. Number of days to close was 62. Sold price per square foot 195.83. And then 44 homes sold.
Yep. So that was a busy month for the 34771 zip code. They are currently, if you look at January to December, it's taking about 3 times as long to get a home under contract.
Oh, wow.
So, make sure you plan for that. But your price increase from January to December, still 14.3%. You're up from 195.83 a square foot to 223.75. Wow. So still a pretty healthy gain there. And then what happened in June?
And so then we have June. We have number of days contract is 8, and number of days closed 44. Sold price per square foot $233.71. Number of homes sold 45.
Wow. And so that's, it's taking, if you look at June seemed to be a hot month, actually. Now that I'm looking at the numbers here, you're looking at 5.6 times longer than June.
Oh, wow.
So like our summer runs. But that's pretty typical though, right? Like summer is a really busy time. A lot of people making big moves.
Well, plus you contract in the spring sometimes too.
Right.
If you're closing in June.
Right.
You could be in contract in April, May, at least May probably.
Right. Anyway, so your days to contract is a little bit is longer at 5.5 months or 5.5 times, sorry, longer than it was in June. And the price per square foot, the sold price per square foot is down 4.3%. Mm-hmm. So you went from $233.71 a square foot to $223.75 in December.
So every comparison we're doing, whether it be January, June, we're comparing to last month, December.
Correct. Yeah, because that's the most recent month of full data.
Yep.
Close out the year.
All right, let's go to 34772. In December of 22, we have number of days to contract 39, number of days to close 75.
Yep.
Sold price per square foot 207.10. Number of homes sold 31.
That's awesome. And what happened in January?
January of 2022, we were number of days to contract 20, number of days to close 55. That's 55 versus 75. 190.27 sold price per square foot. Number of homes sold 26.
And the number of homes sold, that's actually pretty similar to each other. You have 26 homes sold in January and 31 sold in December. So it's in terms of homes that are selling, it's still selling at a good pace over there in 34772. It is taking about twice as long to get under contract.
Yeah.
And your overall sold price per square foot is still up 8.8%.
Wow.
From January. So, still really healthy gains throughout the year. Even though last year felt like a big change year, it's still really healthy over January. And then what happened in June?
And then June, we had number of days contract was 7, number of days to close 42, sold price per square foot 217.07, number of homes sold 53.
That was a busy month.
That was.
It was a really busy month for 34772 this summer. And so if you compare June to December, you were looking at about 5.5 times longer to get a home under contract from 7 days to 39 days. And a decrease in price of about 4.6% for your sold price per square foot. You were at 217.07 in June, and now you're at 207.10 in December. But again, some of that too is, I think, cyclical, right? Like the time of the year.
Oh, absolutely.
Even summers are always busier.
And December's usually quieter.
And you always say that if you're looking to buy a house, December is a great time to buy, right? Because
it's interesting. I was talking to a broker associate realtor from another state, and they said they always tell their sellers to put their house on the market during that time because there's less houses. But I'm like, but there's also less buyers.
Right.
And it was interesting because I just looked at it like, that's kind of like the total opposite of what I say.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know.
I guess when you're ready to sell, put your house on the market.
Yeah, absolutely.
There'll be buyers and the right buyer will come along.
When I meet with sellers now, when they say, how long do you think it will take? I'm just saying, probably at least 60 days. And it doesn't mean that someone will come in the first week because that can happen.
Right, absolutely.
But set up expectations up front.
Right.
I mean, they're taking longer to close. And
right.
So you just have to be patient. And
yeah, absolutely. And I think, all of that goes into your strategy, right? With how you price a home, because the days to contract and days to close mean nothing if you're overpriced by $200,000.
Yeah, exactly.
You're never going to sell that house. So, but pricing appropriately for the market and doing, good recent comparables to what's sold and really just kind of breaking it down. I think that makes a difference too.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And presenting it well. So
look at 34773. We almost talked about not even including it.
It's such a small sample size because if you take out like the new construction,
which we have a lot,
which is like all of Harmony West, the Enclave in Harmony, basically the Pine Glen area, like you take everything out, you're left with not a lot of resales, especially when you're just talking about single family homes. So you take out the townhouses and condos in Harmony, you take out the manufactured homes in Hollapaw, like you exclude all of that, you're down to a really, really small sample size. So we kind of like questioned whether or not to put it in, but
we did anyway.
Here we are. So just know.
And this is when people say, okay, stop listening.
Right, exactly. Just call. We'll help you out. We'll tell you where you're falling in this range. But
so December 2022, number of days contract 32, number of days to close 100. Sold price per square foot 209.22. Number of homes sold. Are you ready, folks? 3.
It's kinda,
3 in December.
It's kind of hard to compare.
Yes.
When you have 3
But
homes,
let's go to January because that was hopping. So January 2022, we have number of days contract 5, number of days closed 47. That's a lot less. Sold price per square foot 176.36. Number of homes sold. Hold on, because this is a real lot. 8. 8.
So that's a difference. It's taking about, again, very small sample size, but taking, January to December, it's taking about 6.5 times as long to sell a house. I mean, we went from 5 days to 32 days.
Yeah.
So it's a big jump. But the price per square foot, the sold price per square foot was up 18.6% from January to December.
Oh, wow.
And again, this is all the median numbers. So wherever it falls exactly in the middle.
And then June of 2022, we had 10 days to contract, 47 days to close, 194.01 sold price per square foot. Number of homes sold, 13.
It was busier in the summer. even in sleepy 34773, but it still took 3. We're still up about 3 times as long to get a home under contract. But this is the one outlier, which I think is what made me go like, hey, everything else is skewing differently. Price per square foot from June to December is up 7.8% in the 3.773,
and every other zip code was down.
Yep, every other one from June, kind of. I don't want to say like peaked, but you know what I mean? Like June was definitely higher than we found in December.
Interesting.
So we'll see. Yeah, again, curious to see if that's, just your typical cyclical, your typical months and how things go, or if it's a trend that we'll see, in 2023. Or I kind of feel, and that kind of brings us to the point of this episode, was to discuss kind of what we see happening in 2023 and how you think the real estate market's going to play out, and what the experts are saying.
Well, yeah, what the experts are saying, absolutely. We were just reading an article put out by the Florida Realtors, and they were just saying it's going to continue. They don't expect the prices to come down. Yes, they might even out a little bit, but they expect it still to be a healthy, strong market.
And it's crazy because as not busy as we feel.
Well, let's go back to that.
Yeah.
Because we actually had a team meeting today, and where were you, by the way?
I was getting ready for this podcast. It doesn't set itself up,
But home prices remain high, but growth will still be slower. Because I know I see that with a lot of the builders now, and the builders are just offering crazy incentives, and folks don't go to the builder without having representation, a realtor. You definitely want to have that, but yeah, they just expect it to, like I said to most people, you're not losing all the equity you just gained over the 2 years.
No.
It's still there, know, but again, everything's taking longer to sell and it's a little bit slower.
Right. And people feel that the fear of like, oh my gosh, I missed the boat. I mean, you really didn't. If the equity's still there, it's still there.
So when I was asking everyone today, it was like, what happened? It was like the floodgates opened. Like it's been pretty quiet through December. I mean, we had closings, but it was just quiet.
It was quiet.
And then New Year's came, and the week passed for New Year's, and then literally like really towards the end, like last week and this week, all of a sudden it's like, did someone just open the floodgates to buyers? Like all of a sudden they came out.
Right.
So, and I asked across the office, different area, and they all said pretty much the same thing. All of a sudden they get real busy. So to me, when I see that busyness in January, that's an indication to me that we're going to have a strong, it doesn't mean anything,
right.
I mean, there's no
anything. There's so many, and like I said, I think we talked about it. You were like, do you think the rates are going to play a factor? And I feel like the craziness with the rates, like that all happened, spring to like fall of last year. And I think that the fact that they've kind of just settled at that traditional 6% whatever range, like mid sixes or whatever. I think like buyers are like, okay, well now I know what I can really afford. I think sellers are coming to the table with, like being more open to negotiations. I think it's bringing buyers back out. I think buyers were, for a minute there, they were like, ugh,
right.
I don't know if I want to do this right now.
And we're definitely seeing, and that's something like we talk to sellers about when we're listing. We'll say, this is the kind of market we're in. Buyers need help. The rates are higher. They can't afford as much of a house, even if it's buying down the rate or helping with closing costs. So, and again, it's just, preparing, helping sellers understand what kind of market it is. But houses are still selling.
They really are. I mean, we talked about it in the last episode where we looked at like, the month's supply, and we were still in anywhere between 2 and 4 months supply,
which is low
across the whole St. Cloud area. So it's like, that's not a lot of houses.
No,
not for the number of people that seem to come here all the time. So it's interesting to see, how these things are going to play out in 2023, but I think it's going to be a good year.
And as long as the feds don't keep raising the rate, it did come down, and they're talking about not raising them. The last article I read, and so we'll see. They change their mind like the wind. You know what I mean? But again, like you said, I think buyers have settled into the idea. Like, the rates are the rates.
Right.
What can I afford? How can I get help?
And I don't know about you, but like I had a few buyers last year that were like really hot and in the market leading into the new year, and then they still couldn't find anything because the very beginning of last year it was still like ridiculously competitive. You had ridiculous offers on houses and stuff like that, and they ended up signing a lease. Now those leases are coming up again.
Yeah.
So they're like, okay, let me dip my toe in the water and see what's back out there, and what can I afford, and am I happy? And so I think a lot of that's happening too, as people that had to recommit to leases are now like, coming back.
And the rents went up so high.
They did
with the lease, and supposedly that's leveled out too.
I have noticed that. Yeah. I get listings of rentals in Harmony just because I like to keep my finger on the pulse in my personal community, and I've noticed that the houses that are sitting longer, they're starting to come down to a more reasonable. Price range. So we'll see. I don't know if anything's ever reasonable anymore.
No, that's true. That's true.
Anyway, so that's kind of what we see for what we saw in 2022, what we're seeing for 2023.
Yep. So buyers, sellers, don't be afraid.
Right.
It's still a market. Come on out.
Right.
Right.
And it's funny because I feel like at the end of the day, it's still Florida. Like, I don't care what the national news says, it's Florida. And like with the amount of people here
coming
and wanting to come here,
everyone working from home, yada.
Exactly.
We're our state's a little bit different.
So anyway, we're looking forward to seeing what happens in 2023, and you guys can hold us accountable for what we said today in 6 months if we're wrong. And it goes back to
even the big experts get it wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. But anyway, thanks so much for joining us today for another episode of Discover St. Cloud, Florida. You can find us on all your favorite podcast platforms. You can also send us an email if you'd like to get in touch with us at discoverstcloud@gmail.com. You can find us on...
You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Facebook, Insta, all around.
Yep. And if you want to give us a call at
1-844-St. Cloud. That's STCLOUD.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you in the next episode.